For some people, this proposition may seem far-fetched, but ending poverty is both morally necessary and actually feasible. All of us must play a role in making it happen. All human beings want, and have a right to live in dignity, to determine our own destinies, and to be respected by other people. Despite the universality of these rights, our capacities to fulfill them vary enormously, and no dividing line is more profound in influencing the quality of our lives than the gulf between poverty and prose and prosperity. At the Smithsonian American Art Museum, you can see a large heart-shaped sculpture made of blown glass. The deep red-colored heart is topped with a burning flame also made of glass. It is called the Sacred Heart of Healing and was made by the artist Tim Tate. How did he make this interesting glass form? Today we answer this question as we explore the art of making glass. Throughout history, people from cultures around the world have been making glass. People first found and used glass made by nature. For example, lightning can create tubes of glass when it strikes sand that has the right combination of minerals. Glass pieces produced by lightning are called fulgurites. Obsidian is a kind of black glass formed when the heat of a volcano melts the silica material in sand. Ancient cultures broke off pieces of obsidian to make knives and weapons such as arrows. If you can read a clock, you can know the time of day. But no one knows what time itself is. We cannot see it. We cannot touch it. We cannot hear it. We know it only by the way we mark its passing. For all our success in measuring the smallest parts of time, time remains one of the great mysteries of the universe. One way to think about time is to imagine a world without time. There could be no movement because time and movement cannot be separated. A world without time could exist only as long as there were no changes. For time and change are linked. We know that time has passed when something changes. There is something hard to resist about cherries. The small red fruit is a popular seasonal food around the world. In northern areas, cherry trees are just beginning to produce flowers. The cherry is a member of the same family of plants as the rose. It is closely related to the plum. Like cherry trees, plum trees also flower in early spring. Cherries are thought to be native to Western Asia. There are two major kinds of cherries harvested in the world, sweet and sour. Sour cherries are not eaten fresh because they contain little sugar. Instead, they are processed to make prepared foods like jellies and pies and to make alcoholic drinks. The United States is a major producer of sour cherries. Among the states, Michigan is the top producer. Winter has returned to northern parts of the world. In the northern United States, winter can mean the return of snow. Large amounts of snow fell in some American cities last month. One storm hit the East Coast, causing flight cancellations and temporarily stopping traffic in all some areas. Snow is a subject of great interest to weather experts. They sometimes have difficulty estimating where, when, or how much snow will fall. One reason is that heavy amounts of snow fall in surprisingly small areas. Another reason is that a small change in temperature can mean the difference between snow and rain. Hair has always been an important sign of beauty. This is especially true for women. Next to the face, hair is one of the main qualities people look for when they consider a woman's beauty. Whether long or short, curly or straight, hair often gets a lot of attention. People who have it value it. Those of us who do not, often mourn its loss. Each hair on a person's head grows from a single tube-like hole in the skin called a follicle. People are born with all of the hair follicles they are ever going to have. The average person has about 100,000 hair follicles. They begin to form on a fetus around the 3rd month of pregnancy. A burro is a small donkey. Donkeys are related to horses, both are part of the equine family. Another way people say it is burro. The name comes from Spanish and, before that, from a Latin term for small horse. Burros reach an average height of over a meter and can weigh more than 225 kilograms. The long-eared animals are often gray with white noses, jaws and undersides. But they can also have coats of red or blue. Burros are known for their sure footing on mountains while carrying heavy loads. In the United States, they are best known for their history as pack animals in the desert Southwest. In fact, burros in the wild are related to pack animals that ran away or were freed by gold miners and others. In far northern Mongolia, the survival of the smallest ethnic group in the country depends on reindeer. An American named Morgan Key visited the Tsadan community when she was studying in Mongolia in 2002. Leaders told her that the animals were not healthy and the number of reindeer was getting too small to support the community. When she left, the chief gave her his grandfather's smoking pipe. That way she would remember the Tsadan and try to help them. The Tsadan have about 500 members. About half are reindeer herders up in the Taiga Mountains. The other half live in a town. Rutherford Hayes was born in Ohio in 1822. He was a good student at Kenyon College and at Harvard Law School. He opened a law office in Cincinnati. When he was 30 years old, he married Lucy Webb. Later, he served as an officer in the Union Army during America's Civil War. He was elected to the United States House of Representatives. He also served as governor of Ohio. In this job, he helped establish the college that became Ohio State University. The White House was the largest house in the country until after the Civil War in the 1860s. The White House has 132 rooms, including 16 family and guest rooms, 35 bathrooms, and 3 kitchens. There are 6 levels. The first level has many famous rooms. For example, the West Wing of the White House includes the Oval Office. This is where the President works and meets with his advisors. The President receives guests in the Blue Room. And the State Dining Room can hold 140 people for official dinners in honor of foreign leaders. The second and third floors are the family's private areas. When it is cold outside, the President and his family can warm up near one of the White House's 28 fireplaces. And when it is hot outside, they can swim in the outdoor pool. Today we look up into the skies to explore the past and present of the tallest buildings in the world. Skyscrapers were first built in the late 19th century. Engineers then probably would not believe the soaring heights of today's tallest buildings. Skyscrapers represent modernity, power, and the expanding boundaries of human invention and new technology. Skyscrapers were invented in the United States. As early as the 1880s, 2 new technical developments made these taller buildings possible. One development was the mechanical elevator. It meant that people would not have to climb many steps to reach the upper floors of tall buildings. The development of steel building technology also helped make taller buildings possible. What can you do with earthworms? Some people use the creepy crawlers to catch fish. But others put worms to work making compost. Compost looks and feels like good soil. Gardeners and farmers add it to soil to make plants grow better. You can make compost from food waste at home with or without the help of worms. How the worms help is by first eating and processing the food. It comes out the other end of the worm as rich compost. Kim Gable from the University of Florida Extension Service in Key West suggests using red worms known as red wigglers. This week, we explore music through the eyes of 2 married couples. One of them produces recordings of traditional Hawaiian music. The other husband and wife combine music with poetry from their Irish and Sri Lankan Tamil ancestries. And, later in our program, we learn how an American composer created an online choir of more than 2,000 singers from all over the world. Lori and Jake Rohrer live near the small town of Haiku on the Hawaiian island of Maui. They have a recording studio in their home. They are helping to support the music of artists who they say are extremely talented yet largely unknown. Lori discovered Hawaiian music at the age of 8. She came from a military family stationed at Pearl Harbor on the island of Oahu. Today we tell about Kurt Vonnegut, a writer and thinker who shook up the country with his unusual writing style and subjects. He helped energize huge numbers of young people to protest the Vietnam War and to always question the powers that be. It took Kurt Vonnegut about 25 years to write his most famous book, Slaughterhouse-Five. It was published in 1969. The book remains required reading in high school and college English classes across the country. It includes this description of the firebombing of Dresden, Germany, by Allied forces during World War II, as witnessed by a soldier named Billy Pilgrim. Today, we tell about writer Zora Neale Hurston. She was one of the most recognized black women writers. She wrote 7 books and more than 100 short stories, plays, and articles for magazines. Zora Neale Hurston was born in 1891 in Notasluga, Alabama. A short time later, her family moved to Edenville, a small town in central Florida. All of the people of Edenville were African American. The town shaped Hurston's life and her writing. As a child, she would listen closely to the stories told by the adults in the town. Several of her books take place in communities very similar to Edenville. The people she wrote about in her books are very similar to people she knew there. An allergy is an unusually strong reaction to a substance. Many things can cause allergies. The most common cause is pollen. Trees usually produce pollen in the spring, grasses in the summer, and weeds in the fall as part of their reproductive process. Other causes include organisms such as dust mites and molds. Chemicals, plants and dead skin particles from dogs and cats can also cause allergic reactions. So can insect stings and some foods. The most common kind of allergic reaction is itchy, watery eyes, and a blocked or watery nose. Allergies can also cause red, itchy skin. Some reactions can be life-threatening, for example, when breathing passages become blocked. Later this week, Americans will celebrate the nation's Independence Day. On July 4, 1776, colonial leaders approved the final Declaration of Independence for the United States. This year, the city of New York will also celebrate the opening of part of an important symbol of America that has been closed to the public for the past 8 years. The Statue of Liberty has stood in New York Harbor for more than 100 years. It was a gift from the people of France in 1884. Its full name is Liberty Enlightening the World. The Statue of Liberty is 46 meters tall from its base. It is made mostly of copper. Throughout history, images of liberty have been represented as a woman. The statue is sometimes called Lady Liberty. A listener in Poland recently sent us an email. Slavik Lobota writes, "There are many American universities and colleges that provide long-distance education to the world. The trouble is that each university says that it is the best. After an hour of searching and reading what they have in their offer, one gets a headache. You simply don't know whom to trust and what to choose. Slavic goes on to say, I have been listening to VOA for years and I would trust you if you made an interesting program about American universities for foreigners. Is there a university that you could recommend? After World War II, many Americans still believed that people of different races should not mix. In some parts of the country, blacks and whites lived in separate areas and went to separate schools. Blacks who tried to change the system risked being beaten or killed. Blacks were not permitted to play on professional baseball teams or in any other major league sport. No black man had played for a major league baseball team since 1884. In that year, American baseball organizations agreed to bar blacks. That began changing when Jackie Robinson played his first game for New York's Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15, 1947. Margaret Brown was a social and political activist in the formative years of the modern American West. Her biggest claim to fame was surviving the Titanic. This week on our program, we tell the story of the woman remembered as the unsinkable Molly Brown. Margaret Brown lived an interesting life, but not all the stories about her are true. For example, a Denver newspaper reporter named Jean Fowler wrote that she survived a tornado as a baby, refused to attend school, and chewed tobacco. Fowler wrote about Brown and others in his book Timberline, published after her death in 1932. Monkeys are very similar to us in many ways. Most have 10 fingers and 10 toes, and brains much like ours. We enjoy watching them because they often act like us. In fact, Charles Darwin's theory of evolution says that monkeys and humans share a common ancestor. Songwriter William Gilbert, in the musical Princess Ida, wrote, "Darwinian man, though well-behaved, at best is only a monkey shaved." His words, sung to Sir Arthur Sullivan's music, make listeners smile. Well, monkeys make us smile, too, because they are creatures full of playful tricks. This is why many monkey expressions are about tricky people or playful acts. One of these expressions is monkey shines, meaning tricks or foolish acts. Today we explain some expressions about birds. For example, if something is for the birds, it is worthless or not very interesting. Someone who eats like a bird eats very little. And a bird's eye view is a general look at an area from above. Did you know that if you tell a young person about the birds and the bees you are explaining about sex and birth? Have you ever observed that birds of a feather flock together? In other words, people who are similar become friends or do things together. Here is some good advice: a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. This means you should not risk losing something you have by trying to get more of something you do not have. Bob played baseball in high school. At the age of 16, he secretly signed an agreement with a Major League Baseball team, the Cleveland Indians. He received $1 and a baseball signed by the Cleveland players. Bob Feller became a professional baseball player at the age of 17 while he was still in high school. He never pitched in the minor leagues, as most players do today. In July of 1936, he pitched in an unofficial game against the St. Louis Cardinals. He struck out 8 batters. None of them were able to hit the balls that Feller threw. The next month, he struck out 15 batters in a game against the St. Louis Browns. In September, Bob Feller pitched against the Philadelphia Athletics. He tied the major league record of striking out 17 players in one game. Before his first season had ended, the New York Times reported that Bob Feller's name was on the tongues of 1 million fans. He was said to be the best-known young person in America. Diane Arbus is known for creating intense black and white photographs of very unusual people. She used a special camera that produced square-shaped images. Often her subjects look sad, conflicted, or physically abnormal. But they do not try to hide their insecurities. They openly stare at the camera. One art expert said Diane Arbus turned photography inside out. Instead of looking at her subjects, she made them look at her. Arbus learned to mix the realistic nature of photography with its expressive possibilities. She explored how people live with sameness and difference as well as acceptance and rejection. These combinations created very interesting art that was often disputed. In the 1850s, women in the United States began to try to gain the same rights as men. One woman was a leader in the campaign to gain women the right to vote. I'm Stan Busby. And I'm Shirley Griffith. Today we tell about a fighter for rights for women, Susan B. Anthony. In 1776, a new nation declared its freedom from Britain. The Declaration of Independence was the document written to express the reasons for seeking that freedom. It stated that all men were created equal. It said that all men had the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not every citizen of the new United States of America had one important right, however. That was the right to vote. At first, the only people permitted to vote in the United States were white men who owned property and could read. By 1860, most white male citizens over the age of 21 had the right to vote. On March 4, 1801, Thomas Jefferson walked to the Capitol building in Washington. He was about to be inaugurated as the third President of the United States. He entered the Capitol to the thunder of cannon. All the senators and representatives stood until Jefferson sat down. A few moments later, the newly elected president rose and began to read his inaugural speech. Harry Monroe tells us what he said. "Friends and fellow citizens, I have been called to the position of chief executive of our country. I must tell you how honored and thankful I am. But I must tell you, too, of my fears. Yes, I must tell you that the duties of your president are too much for any one man. However, I tell myself that I am not alone. When I see all your faces, I understand the wisdom of those who wrote our Constitution. For in you, the members of Congress, and in the judicial branch of our government, I know that I shall find the strength, the honesty, the courage that I shall need. Cats are the most popular pets among Americans. So it is not surprising that there are many expressions about cats. Some cats like to catch small birds, like canaries. If someone looks very proud or satisfied with himself, we say he looks like the cat that ate the canary. Sometimes, a cat likes to play with a small animal it catches. So if you play cat and mouse with someone, you change between different kinds of behavior when dealing with another person. For example, a child might offer something sweet to her little brother and then take it away when he reaches for it. A cat will often catch a small animal and present it to its owner. The saying that looks like something the cat dragged and describes something in bad condition. Few people would argue that tobacco smoke is good for you. For more than 40 years, scientists have said cigarette smoking can cause serious health problems. But today, smokers and people who do not smoke often argue about smoking in the workplace. Many non-smokers would like to have smoking banned where they work. They fear harmful effects from other people's tobacco smoke, also known as second-hand smoke. Business owners often say a ban on smoking would harm their profits. And, smokers say such a ban would interfere with their rights. Have you had a headache recently? If your answer is yes, you are like many millions of people worldwide who experience pain in the head. The pain can be temporary, mild, and cured by a simple painkiller like an aspirin. Or, it can be severe. The National Headache Foundation says more than 45 million people in the United States suffer chronic headaches. Such headaches cause severe pain that goes away but returns later. Some headaches may prove difficult and require time to treat. But many experts today are working toward cures or major help for chronic headaches. Some people's ears produce wax like busy little bees. This can be a problem even though earwax appears to serve an important purpose. Experts say it protects and cleans the ear. It traps dirt and other matter and keeps insects out. Doctors think it might also help protect against infections. And the waxy oil keeps ears from getting too dry. So earwax is good. It even has a medical name, cerumen. And there are two kinds. Most people of European or African ancestry have the wet kind, thick and sticky. East Asians commonly have dry earwax.